Hello coin collectors out there, welcome back to the Big D Coins channel. In today's video we are going to look at this wheat penny right here. You can probably already spot the error on it, but if not, let me point it out to you. Check out the date on it, 1953, but look at the 9. That 9 looks like a blob. We'll compare that to this one right here, which is a 1941 penny. See the difference between the 9 on the one on the top and the one on the bottom? The one on the bottom is known as a filled-in error penny. These are somewhat common with the 1950s penny, although they could happen anytime in the 1900s decade. So we'll talk about what caused these errors and what to look for when trying to find a filled-in 9 error penny. We'll also show off this coin right here, which is one of the cool kind of colorized state quarters that I've got as part of my collection. So let me zoom out a little bit for you. So check that out. A very nice looking coin. That will be at the end of the video. And I've also got this blank planchet for a nickel right here to kind of share with you as well. You can get these for pretty cheap as well. So this should have had the imprinted design on it, but it didn't. And that will be used to kind of explain what we're looking at here with the filled-in 9 error. So about the error itself, to understand the error, you have to understand how the die itself works. So the die is a negative or a reverse of the coin. So everything you see raised on a coin is cut into the die or recessed. So the 9 that's cut into the die, the 9 right here, which is cut into the die, means the inside area, the loop of the 9, is no longer has any support. So an analogy that I saw, which explains the filled-in 9, if you can imagine digging a circle in dirt, the area inside the circle will collapse if you step on it. So if the die breaks off and fills the planchet metal when the coin is being struck, the die gets filled. So you get the filled-in 9. Since it's a hole, it shows up as the opposite on a raised coin. 1958 are notorious for die failures. 1953 is the one I got right here. But as I mentioned, the 1950s are notorious for die failures. Now, the mintages in 1950s very high. And I think that's definitely part of the reason for it, as well as they weren't really taking great care of the dies back then. So you have a lot more of the filled-in die errors. If you look at the mintages for 1958 at the D Mint, the Denver Mint, which is the same mint mark that I've got right here, there are 800 million of them that were made. There were some mintages over a billion made at the 1956 and the 1957 Denver Mint. And the mint that I've got right here, there are 700,000 of these that were made. So there seems to be a direct correlation for the 1950s, at least, with the higher mintage coins are more likely to have errors in them. So let's run back exactly what I said about the error that caused this. So if you think of the die, this is the planchet right here, but if you think of the die is the reverse of the details that you see right here. So it gets cut into the die and then stamped into this, which causes the raised surface. So when the die breaks down, the 9 gets filled in, and that causes a filled in 9 on the surface of the coin right here. Now, as far as the value of these coins go, they'll cost around $1 to $2, so there's not super high profit on them. The more scarce the year, the more valuable the coin will be, of course, and the better condition of the overall coin, the more it will sell for as well. So this right here is the filled-in 9. Another common error for the 1950s, which I've talked about in some other videos, is the Bie error. So that involves a die chip between the B and the E in Liberty. So kind of the same concept can be applied from this right here to get to the Bie error, and you'll see a raised surface between the B and the E. Now, if you're turning into this video, you might have just been curious about 1953 pennies in general. So let's give you some stats as far as the prices of the higher end 1953 pennies. Now, unless your coin has the red designation to it, unless it has some very nice coloring of it, it won't be worth being graded at all. PCGS has graded many of them at the 1953D as a red designation, and it only really gets profitable if you can get your coin graded at mint state 66 or higher. PCGS has a price cut of $17 for a mint state 65, and unfortunately they've graded around 1,000 of those coins. So that means people submit these coins expecting to get a good return on your investment. They find out that it's only graded mint state 65, and then that, the coin's only worth about $17, and they kind of wasted their time and their effort to get that coin graded, hoping that it would get a higher grade. All right, so that's what we talked about with the 1953. Now, this specific error isn't listed in the cherry picker's guide. The reason why, I assume, is because they could probably list all 1950s coins as possibly having this error. So it's not really unique to 1953, but it seems to occur most frequently in 1953. The cherry picker's guide does mention 2 repunched mint marks involving 1953D. One of them is valued at $125 for a mint state 65 red. Mint state 65 doesn't have to have the red designation. So that involves the secondary D mint mark on the edge of the vest. So the 53D repunch mint mark, there's a secondary D that's actually located right there. So keep your eye out for that if you're looking at 1953D pennies as well. Now let's quickly show off this kind of colorized coin. So a very nice looking coin right here. They did these with all of the state quarters. I occasionally come across these. At my local coin shop, they'll give these away for free as just kind of change. As you can see, it's worn out a little bit, so a little bit of the shininess has worn from the high parts on the buffaloes right here. But it's just essentially a regular North Dakota state quarter, and then they apply the gold coloring to it, and then they scrape away some of it to give it a little bit of a shine to it. So very cool. Unfortunately, it's not going to be worth a lot of money, which again is good news and bad news, as I often say on the channel, because it means my coin shop gives these away as kind of just change because they can't sell them. So it's easy for you to pick them up, but hard for you to sell them and make a profit on. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching the video. Take care and best of luck coin collecting out there. Enjoy.